In the dead of night, when the stars above burn cold and distant, an ancient power stirs beneath the soil. Tomb worlds long forgotten awaken, and the echoes of an empire older than humanity ripple through the air. Cities tremble as metal warriors, relics of a bygone age, rise from the dust to reclaim what was once theirs. The skies blacken with dread, and the pulse of human life feels impossibly fragile against the inevitability of the Necron awakening. What will remain when the dead walk once more? If you crave tales of cosmic terror and the clash of civilizations, hit like, subscribe, and join us as we descend into the chilling silence of a world on the brink of annihilation. Beneath the rolling plains and bustling cities of this seemingly ordinary world, the earth holds secrets older than memory itself. Layers of soil, rock, and centuries of civilization cover monuments of a time before humanity's first whispers of history. To the untrained eye, the land is ordinary, fields sway with crops, rivers cut gentle paths, and the mountains loom with quiet dignity. But below, in the shadowed veins of the planet, the tombs of the Necrons sleep. They lie in patient silence, their slumber undisturbed by centuries of storms, wars, and human ambition. Every stone, every mineral, every pulse of tectonic energy vibrates with an unseen tension, as if the planet itself is holding its breath. Archaeologists have stumbled upon fragments, strange geometries in rock, glyphs too precise, too deliberate, to be natural. Metallic shards, corroded yet stubbornly intact, hint at construction techniques beyond human comprehension. Sensors occasionally pick up faint energy readings, dismissed by authorities as geological anomalies. Yet those who pause in contemplation sense a weight, a presence beneath their feet, ancient and unyielding. Even the wind carries a subtle resonance, a faint hum that seems to echo from deep below. It is in this silence that the world's first warning emerges, not in explosions or alarms, but in the quiet awareness that something is waking. The Necrons were never creatures of chaos or passion. They are architects of inevitability, their consciousness encoded into flesh transmuted to living metal. Unlike humanity, whose history is a tapestry of emotion and impulse, the Necron Empire is a lattice of logic and cold intent. Their tombs are not mausoleums in the sense humans understand, they are batteries, archives, and engines. They are the keepers of a time when stars themselves were young, and life on countless worlds was nascent and fleeting. Within these silent catacombs, every mechanism, every sarcophagus, and every etched surface serves a purpose. And when the moment arrives, it will awaken with absolute precision. But the awakening does not announce itself with fanfare. It begins subtly, almost imperceptibly. A tremor runs through a remote plateau, shaking dust from ancient ceilings. Cracks appear in stone, unnoticed by passers-by above. Strange lights, emerald and blue, cold and serene, flicker briefly from deep fissures before vanishing, like the eyes of a creature glimpsed in a dream. Locals report a fleeting chill in the air, a sense of unease that passes as quickly as it arrives. Scientists measure minor fluctuations in electromagnetic fields, dismissing them as background noise. And yet, the planet remembers. The tombs remember. In the shadows of these catacombs, the Necrons lie in stasis, their forms metallic, skeletal, perfect in their geometry and symmetry. Each warrior, each overlord, each sentinel of an ancient dynasty is poised in a state of latent power, as though merely dreaming of the moment when flesh and bone will once more be insignificant beneath the weight of inevitability. Within these chambers, the air is not air, it is a vacuum of expectation. The Necron consciousness, collective yet individually precise, whispers not in sound but in inevitability. A calculation runs continuously, When will the conditions align? When will the stars, the soil, and the heartbeat of the world synchronize to awaken an empire? And there is a beauty in this anticipation, terrifying and sublime. The geometry of the tombs, the harmony of their design, the cold precision of machinery waiting for its first motion, all speak to a civilization that views time as both enemy and servant. The human mind cannot truly grasp it, though we feel its edges. Dreams are haunted with echoes of marching metallic feet, the clicking of mechanisms in perfect rhythm, and a silence so profound it drowns all other sounds. It is in this stillness, this breathless moment before history begins again, that humanity is entirely unaware of its fragility. Above ground, life continues obliviously. Children play, lovers meet under the sun, and cities thrive. But every passing moment draws the world closer to a point of no return. Beneath parks, beneath rivers, beneath mountains, the Necrons lie dormant, waiting for the first signal, the first tremor that will ripple through their ancient minds. When it comes, there will be no warning, only awakening, and the silent depths will finally speak. The awakening is not an event that announces itself with noise or chaos, it begins as a whisper in the world's bones. Deep beneath the surface, energy stirs in the metallic sarcophagi, circuits humming to life with imperceptible resonance. Dust rises in ancient halls, as though the air itself remembers movement long forgotten. These are the first signs of inevitability, subtle tremors that humans cannot yet understand. Geologists mark anomalies in their reports, but dismiss them as natural. They cannot perceive the deliberate orchestration beneath their feet. The Necrons are patient, their empire does not rush, for time is a tool as malleable to them as stone is to a sculptor. The walls of the tombs, etched with intricate glyphs, begin to shimmer faintly. Symbols that were once dull with age now pulse with a soft green luminescence. These markings are more than decoration, they are a language of power, instructions for mechanisms that have lain dormant for eons. Ancient doors shift imperceptibly, grinding metal against metal, and the faint vibration reaches the surface in irregular pulses. Farmers notice a strange unease in the soil, a tremor that seems to follow their footsteps. Animals flee the region without reason, as if instinctively aware of a force older than their understanding. To humans, these signals are meaningless, nothing more than minor disturbances. But to those attuned to the rhythms of the universe, there is a pattern, a slow, inexorable awakening. In the deepest vaults, the Necron warriors, rows upon rows of metal sentinels, begin to stir. Their limbs twitch as if awakening from a dream, and their eyes, once dark, flare with a cold green light. Each movement is deliberate, precise, as though a long-forgotten plan is being reactivated with the perfect timing of a clockwork mechanism. There is no panic, no hesitation. Every action is calculated, every motion inevitable. The planet itself seems to respond. Minor earthquakes ripple through remote regions, barely perceptible to humans, yet enough to awaken those sensitive to the planet's vibrations. The air grows heavy with an electric tang, charged with the anticipation of what is to come. Winds sweep through the valleys and plains, carrying whispers of inevitability that no human ear can comprehend. Even the stars above seem to flicker in recognition, distant and silent witnesses to a civilization returning from the void. Historians who stumble upon this era long after the fact will speak of strange discoveries, ruined structures with precision unmatched by human engineering, metals that defy corrosion, and glyphs that speak of a civilization older than humanity itself. They will not understand the reason. They will not perceive the quiet orchestration beneath the surface. All they will see are fragments of inevitability, remnants of a power that had waited silently for eons to return. And in this silence, the first stirrings of awareness are profound. The Necrons are not creatures of emotion or desire, they are the embodiment of calculated inevitability. Their consciousness is a network, linking every tomb, every warrior, every mechanism into a symphony of precision. When the first spark of activation courses through the tombs, it travels instantly across this network. Decisions that took millennia to encode in their logic now unfold in perfect sequence. A world that believed itself safe is, at that moment, already under scrutiny, already being calculated in infinite permutations of outcome and consequence. Yet even as the Necrons awaken, there is a strange, eerie beauty to their existence. The symmetry of their forms, the grace of their movements, and the silent majesty of their tombs speak to an artistry that humanity cannot fully comprehend. These are not mindless killers, they are architects of inevitability, returning to a universe that once belonged to them, with a precision that is as terrifying as it is sublime. The hum of metal and the pulse of ancient power form a cadence that resonates through the planet itself, a rhythm older than the first human heartbeat, a warning and an elegy in equal measure. Above ground, life remains blissfully unaware. Children laugh in meadows, rivers flow lazily through sunlit valleys, and cities pulse with the rhythm of human endeavor. Yet beneath the streets, under the foundations of these structures, the Necrons lie poised, awakening to reclaim what time has allowed them to forget only for a moment. Every heartbeat of humanity, every fleeting joy, is now a whisper against the inevitability that stirs below. And as the silent depths prepare to speak, the world edges closer to the moment when history itself will bend beneath the weight of the ancient and the eternal. And then, as if the planet itself exhaled, the awakening begins in earnest. The tombs, once silent and inert, now hum with an energy that is both alien and absolute. Every mechanism aligns with uncanny precision. Pistons shift, servos engage, and the first Necron warriors rise from their sarcophagi. Their metallic forms gleam in the faint light of subterranean chambers, reflecting an age-old mastery of engineering. There is no hesitation, no confusion, only purpose. Their steps, even in stillness, carry the weight of inevitability, a reminder that they are not bound by the fragile instincts of mortality. The echoes of their movements ripple through the catacombs. The sound is not loud in the traditional sense, but it resonates in the bones, a vibration felt rather than heard. Ancient doors, carved with impossible precision, swing open. Hallways that were once tombs now become arteries of awakening, carrying the pulse of a civilization that time forgot. Sensors placed on the surface register anomalies, fluctuations in magnetic fields, tremors in the earth, and sudden bursts of energy that defy natural explanation. Scientists scratch their heads, writing off data as instrumentation error, but the truth pulses quietly below, indifferent to disbelief. The Necrons awaken with a deliberate rhythm, their consciousness linked across the tombs in a network older than the stars. Decisions encoded in their minds millennia ago are executed flawlessly. Strategic positioning, resource allocation, and defensive patterns unfold as if a cosmic blueprint has been activated. Humanity, unaware and unprepared, continues its routine above ground. Cities thrive, children play, and markets bustle, but the shadow of inevitability grows beneath their feet. Every moment of oblivion brings them closer to a confrontation they cannot predict, cannot avoid. And yet, there is artistry in this resurrection. The Necron warriors move with a precision that borders on elegance. Each step, each pivot of the head, each illumination of their eyes is choreographed in a silent symphony of calculation. It is terrifying, yes, but there is also a strange, awe-inspiring beauty in witnessing a civilization awaken that surpasses human comprehension. They are not bound by emotion, only by purpose, and their purpose is absolute. Every motion communicates the inevitability of reclamation, every gesture reminds the world of its fragility. Above, life carries on, oblivious. Farmers till their fields, unaware that the ground beneath them has begun to stir. Children chase one another across playgrounds, laughter ringing hollow against the pulse of the tombs below. Birds circle in the sky, sensing the tension in the atmosphere that humans cannot name. And somewhere in the distance, the first faint metallic clinks echo upwards, unnoticed, yet heralding a coming that will redefine the world. The awakening of the Necrons is not merely a physical rise, it is a statement of cosmic inevitability. Time bends to their existence. History, a tapestry woven by countless human hands, begins to fray at its edges. And though no trumpet sounds, no alarm rings, the universe itself bears witness. The silent depths have spoken. A civilization older than humanity has returned to remind the world that it is transient, fragile, and fleeting. As the final mechanisms engage, and the last sarcophagus opens, a chilling realization settles like a fog across the planet. Life above ground is beautiful, ephemeral, and utterly unaware. Below, the Necrons stand poised, their glowing eyes scanning, calculating, waiting for the first signs of resistance, the first spark of defiance. And in that moment, the world holds its breath, suspended between innocence and inevitability. The silent depths have awakened, and nothing will ever be the same again. Long before humanity carved its civilizations into the flesh of the cosmos, before empires rose and fell like fleeting sparks, there was the Necron dynasty. They were not born of chaos, nor of fragile organic ambition, they were a race of architects, scholars, and conquerors who measured time not in centuries, but in eons. Their empire stretched across stars, civilizations, and worlds, a lattice of logic and absolute precision. They knew no fear, no hesitation, only purpose, and in their consciousness, the cosmos itself was a tool to be wielded. To understand the Necrons is to glimpse the inevitability of history on a scale humans cannot truly grasp. Their tombs are not mere burial sites, they are fortresses, data vaults, armories, and engines of annihilation. Each Necron, every warrior and overlord, carries within their metallic frame the memories of countless lifetimes, encoded in circuits older than the oldest star. They awaken not because of curiosity or desire, but because the universe demands the reclamation of what was once theirs. Every world they touch is assessed, calculated, and, if necessary, overridden. History, for humanity, is linear. For the Necrons, it is cyclical and absolute. Millennia ago, they ruled countless worlds, their dominion unmatched. Civilizations arose and fell beneath their gaze, yet they endured. Then came the cataclysm that shattered their empire, wars with the Old Ones, betrayal, and the eventual stasis that forced them into silent tombs across the galaxy. And yet, even in sleep, their empire persisted, waiting for the moment to awaken, to rise again like a storm that cannot be resisted. It is difficult for humans to comprehend the cold intelligence of the Necrons. Their thoughts are not muddied with emotion, morality, or doubt. They calculate, they adapt, and they execute. Decisions that would take human minds lifetimes to deliberate are made in a fraction of a second, with consequences that ripple across worlds. To witness them is to see inevitability given form, to understand that life itself is fragile when measured against the precision of millennia-old machinery. The Necron warriors themselves are both terrifying and elegant. Skeletal in form, yet more advanced than anything humanity has conceived. They move with a rhythm that mirrors the cosmos. Pistons hiss, joints articulate with seamless perfection, and their eyes, emerald or cold blue, glow with an awareness that sees beyond flesh, beyond strategy, beyond time. Every movement is purposeful, every stance calculated. They are the ghosts of empires past, walking again, and their presence alone reshapes the air, bends perception, and instills a deep, instinctive unease. But they are not merely instruments of war. Their empire is a civilization in its own right, a lattice of philosophy, science, and art encoded in metal. Glyphs carved into walls of tombs, inscriptions on weapons, and architecture of unimaginable scale reveal a culture that revered permanence, precision, and inevitability. The Necrons did not merely seek conquest, they sought perfection. And though millennia of sleep have dulled the immediacy of their empire, every movement, every thought upon awakening, is a resurgence of the civilization they once commanded. The shadows of this ancient empire stretch across the galaxy like a memory. Worlds lie in ruins where they once ruled, civilizations tremble at tales passed down through fragmented histories, and even the stars seem dimmer where the Necron influence lingers. Humanity, unaware of the magnitude, glimpses only the surface, strange ruins, anomalies, and fleeting encounters with relics of impossible technology. They do not see the depth, the logic, the cold poetry of a civilization that views existence itself as a chessboard. And yet, despite the overwhelming precision, there is an elegance to their inevitability. Their awakenings are not frantic eruptions but deliberate resurgences. Every movement is choreographed, every action a calculated step in the reclamation of what was lost. As the first Necrons emerge from their tombs on this human world, the shadows of their empire stretch outward, touching every corner, whispering across the plains, and settling in the hearts of those who sense, even without knowing why, that history is no longer theirs to command. The human mind recoils at the enormity of such a presence. Cities, armies, even the vast expanse of civilization itself appear trivial, fragile, fleeting. And yet, within that fragility lies the spark of awareness, the realization that the universe is far larger, far older, and far more unyielding than anything humans have conceived. The Necron Empire is a shadow upon all worlds, eternal, calculated, and unrelenting. It waits for the moment when time, circumstance, and fate align, and then it strikes, not with emotion, not with haste, but with the inevitability of a mechanism long prepared. The Necron Empire, in its prime, was a civilization of unparalleled mastery over the cosmos. They understood energy, matter, and the flow of time in ways that humans cannot even begin to fathom. Their cities were not built, they were engineered, every line, every spire, every chamber constructed with absolute precision. Light and shadow, sound and vibration, were all accounted for, all meticulously controlled to serve function and purpose. Even in slumber, the architecture of their tombs radiates this design philosophy, waiting patiently for the first spark of activation. To awaken a tomb world is not merely to release warriors, it is to reactivate an entire ecosystem of ancient technology. Energy conduits hum to life, control matrices blink with the memory of long-gone operators, and defensive systems prime themselves with silent efficiency. What humans would perceive as chaos is, in truth, an intricate ballet of logic and inevitability. Each movement, each pulse of power, is part of a grand calculation spanning millennia. And when the Necron gaze falls upon a world, nothing is accidental, nothing is overlooked. Even their history is not told in the linear, emotional arcs familiar to humanity. Their triumphs and defeats are catalogued in circuits and crystal matrices, precise, unyielding, and without embellishment. Wars that lasted centuries are stored in memory banks, strategies encoded and refined, victories and failures analyzed until the perfect response is achievable. And though they once suffered catastrophic losses that forced them into stasis, their knowledge remains intact, preserved with the cold elegance of inevitability. The awakening of a single Necron warrior is but the first note in a symphony that has been rehearsed for millennia. As more warriors stir, the collective awareness of the Empire begins to awaken, connecting tombs across the planet in a lattice of thought and action. They sense the surface world, map its cities, its armies, its strengths and weaknesses. Humanity continues its routines, unaware that every step it takes is now being catalogued, calculated, and incorporated into the strategy of a civilization older than memory itself. The Necrons do not act out of malice or hatred, they act because time has dictated their return. To them, this world is simply a point in a larger equation, a variable in a computation that spans light years and eons. Yet in their precision lies terror, the awareness that everything humans hold dear is fragile, ephemeral, and utterly insignificant in the face of inevitability. Cities built over centuries, cultures nurtured for generations, entire ecosystems, none can resist the measured advance of the Necron resurgence. And yet, there is artistry here, a cold beauty in the methodical way they reclaim their dominion. Their movements are choreographed, mechanical limbs gliding with grace, eyes illuminating in patterns that speak of memory and intent. Even their weapons, extensions of their being, are engineered to exacting standards, delivering force with efficiency that borders on poetry. There is no waste, no error, no hesitation, only the pure execution of purpose. The shadows of their empire stretch beyond the tombs themselves. The planet, sensitive to the ancient energies now reactivated, seems to respond. Minor tremors ripple through tectonic plates, magnetic fields fluctuate, and atmospheric anomalies emerge, unnoticed by those above but felt in the subtle unrest in the air. Even the wildlife senses the change, birds scatter, animals grow skittish, and the natural rhythms of the world seem momentarily unsettled. Every aspect of the environment becomes part of the awakening, a silent acknowledgement of forces older and wiser than humanity can comprehend. And as the first wave of warriors rises, the world stands at the threshold of inevitability. The Necron Empire is not a threat in the human sense, it is a certainty, a shadow of cosmic proportions, returning to assert dominion with the patience and precision that defines its existence. Humanity, blind to the full scope, cannot fathom the scale or intent of the force now stirring beneath their feet. And as the ancient metal forms begin their march, a chilling thought settles over the planet: the age of human dominance is fleeting, and the shadows of an ancient empire have returned to reclaim what was always theirs. And so, as the Necrons fully awaken, the magnitude of their empire becomes undeniable. Their tombs, once silent and forgotten, are now conduits of intelligence and power. Each warrior that rises is not just a soldier but a node in a network spanning the entire planet. Every movement, every observation, every calculation flows seamlessly into the collective consciousness of an empire older than stars themselves. Humans above ground sense nothing yet, save for subtle disturbances, a tremor in the earth, a flicker of unnatural light, a feeling of unease that cannot be named. The history of the Necrons is written not in books or oral tradition, but in the very bones of the worlds they have touched. Their wars were fought with precision, their victories swift and unrelenting, their losses meticulously recorded and studied. They were never cruel for the sake of cruelty, they were precise, calculating, and eternal. A single warrior carries within its frame the knowledge of countless campaigns, strategies refined over eons, every move predetermined yet adaptive, a paradox of inevitability and flexibility. Above ground, life continues, fragile and beautiful. Cities bustle with activity, unaware that the age-old logic of a metal empire has returned to the planet below. Children laugh, markets flourish, and rivers flow through sunlit valleys. To human eyes, the world is unchanged, serene even. Yet beneath the surface, energy pulses through corridors of stone and metal. Doors long sealed shift quietly, glyphs etched into walls illuminate with a ghostly light, and the first Necron patrols begin to explore the vast networks of tombs, their senses extending outward to map the surface world. The awakening is not a chaotic storm, it is a precise, inevitable return. Every Necron movement is deliberate, every strategy calculated, every observation catalogued for future deployment. Their empire, once scattered across the stars, now focuses its attention on this human world. The past is alive in their consciousness, they remember the rise and fall of civilizations, the fleeting nature of organic life, and the perfection of their own design. And now, having re-entered the flow of the living world, they prepare to assert the authority that was theirs long before humanity walked beneath the sun. There is a haunting elegance in their presence. Metallic forms, skeletal and yet impossibly precise, move in patterns that seem almost choreographed, echoing the symmetry of the tombs themselves. Light glints off their armor, eyes glow with an eerie green intensity, and the air hums with a resonance that humans cannot perceive but can instinctively feel. Fear, awe, and fascination intertwine in a subtle, insidious manner. To witness even a fragment of the Necron resurgence is to confront the fragility of life and the permanence of inevitability. And as the last of the tombs stir, a chilling awareness settles across the planet. The Necrons are not merely awakening, they are returning to reclaim, to survey, to calculate, and ultimately, to dominate. Their empire is a shadow that stretches over every continent, every forest, every city. Humanity, brilliant in its ingenuity but fleeting in its existence, cannot match the patience, precision, or scale of a civilization older than the memory of stars. Resistance may arise, but even that is accounted for, analyzed, and integrated into the inexorable logic of Necron strategy. The shadows of this ancient empire have lengthened, stretching beyond the tombs into the living world. The air itself seems charged with anticipation, the soil quivering beneath every step, and the sky darkening with a sense of impending consequence. And yet, in this moment, there is still a pause, a breath between the awakening and the inevitable confrontation. Humanity, still unaware, teeters on the edge of realization. The Necrons do not seek vengeance or conquest in the human sense, they seek reclamation. And as the silent, calculated march begins, the planet itself trembles beneath the weight of inevitability. The legacy of the Necron Empire is not one of chaos or passion, it is of precision, patience, and unyielding purpose. And as their metallic forms sweep through the tombs, awakening in perfect sequence, the world above remains blissfully ignorant. For the first time in millennia, history begins to fold upon itself. The shadows of an ancient empire have returned, and the age of human dominance is approaching its first true reckoning. The inevitable has begun, and nothing will remain untouched by the cold, relentless march of the Necrons. The earth trembles in ways the human eye cannot detect. Beneath the surface, where ancient metal and stone intertwine, something has shifted. The tombs, silent for millennia, begin to breathe with a mechanical rhythm, subtle at first, like the heartbeat of a sleeping giant. Dust rises from corridors that have not felt wind or motion for eons, and faint echoes ripple through caverns carved with impossible precision. It is in this imperceptible stir that the first whispers of inevitability reach the surface, brushing against human consciousness without recognition. Animals sense the disturbance before humans do. Birds scatter from treetops, their flight erratic, wings slicing the air with urgency. Herds of grazing creatures bolt as if driven by instinctive terror, though no predator approaches. Rivers, flowing serenely across plains, seem to pulse ever so slightly, responding to vibrations imperceptible to human senses. The planet itself seems aware, as though it recognizes the reawakening of its long-slumbering denizens. And somewhere in the shadows, ancient gears shift, circuits hum, and the first Necron warriors stir within their tombs, limbs articulating with precision honed over eons. The first awakening is not violent, nor is it chaotic. It is deliberate. Each metallic limb extends with measured grace, each eye flickers with a green or blue intensity that pierces the darkness of the tomb. The air vibrates faintly, carrying the resonance of machinery older than memory. These are not creatures of instinct, they are architects of inevitability. Every movement, every gesture, is part of a greater plan encoded in memory and metal. And as the first of them rise, the silence of the earth begins to fracture, replaced by a rhythm that humans cannot yet comprehend. Above ground, humans remain oblivious. Farmers tend to their crops, children laugh in sunlit meadows, and cities pulse with the predictable rhythm of life. Yet the signs are there for those willing to notice. Minor tremors shake the foundations of buildings, strange lights flicker in the night sky, and unexplainable electromagnetic disturbances interfere with communications. Scientists record anomalies, dismissing them as glitches, unaware that each measurement is a tiny echo of the awakening below. In every corner of the planet, the first stirring begins to rewrite the rules, bending the physical and the perceptible to a logic older than civilization itself. The tombs themselves seem alive in ways the human mind cannot grasp. Doors slide open, hallways align, and chambers shift with a precision that is both terrifying and mesmerizing. Glyphs carved into walls pulse with light, not randomly, but in deliberate sequences that activate mechanisms hidden for millennia. It is as though the planet itself has become a living circuit board, every inch of its crust connected to the minds of the awakened. The Necrons are aware, and the world has no notion of its fragility. When the first warriors emerge fully from their sarcophagi, the effect is chilling. Their skeletal forms, gleaming with cold metallic perfection, move with a rhythm that is alien yet captivating. Pistons hiss, joints articulate, and eyes flare with a luminescence that seems almost sentient. These are not mindless automatons, they are the culmination of a civilization that has mastered the art of inevitability. Each step is calculated, every motion purposeful, every observation catalogued for strategic use. The surface world, still unaware, is now under the scrutiny of a consciousness older than time itself. And yet, even in this deliberate awakening, there is poetry. The symmetry of their movement, the resonance of their mechanics, and the eerie illumination of their eyes create a tableau of beauty and terror. This is a civilization returning not in chaos but in orchestrated perfection. The human mind recoils at the impossibility of it, even if it cannot fully perceive it. For those sensitive to the unnatural, a shiver runs through the spine, a silent acknowledgement that life, fragile and fleeting, is now under the gaze of inevitability. As the first patrols move through the tombs, mapping, activating, and connecting systems, the world above remains unknowing. Minor tremors grow in intensity, faint sounds echo in caves and tunnels, and the first metallic steps reach the surface unnoticed. Humanity continues its routines, unprepared for the consequences of a force that has returned not for conflict alone, but for reclamation, for assertion of dominion, and for the execution of a plan that spans millennia. The first interactions between the Necrons and the surface world are subtle but unnerving. Shadows move where no one should be, lights flicker in empty streets, and electronic systems stutter without explanation. These are the echoes of the awakening, a faint prelude to the inevitability now unfolding. Farmers report strange sounds in the earth at night, townsfolk whisper of chills that cannot be explained, and even seasoned soldiers feel a sense of unease, as though unseen eyes are tracing every movement. Yet none can grasp the scope of what stirs below. Within the tombs, the Necron warriors extend their patrols, their movements perfectly synchronized as if guided by a collective mind that spans the planet. Hallways realign, chambers open, and ancient machinery whirs to life, responding to the activation of the first sentinels. Power surges through conduits that have lain dormant for eons, and glyphs etched into walls pulse rhythmically, carrying instructions and data across the network. This is not chaos, it is order restored, inevitability manifest in living metal. Above ground, subtle signs of the Necron presence manifest in ways that humans misinterpret. Instruments pick up inexplicable fluctuations, seismic activity seems localized yet pervasive, and electrical grids register anomalies. Birds scatter from trees, animals flee, and an uncanny stillness falls over regions that are otherwise ordinary. Few notice, fewer understand. And yet, for those attuned to the rhythm of the world, there is a whisper of the ancient, an acknowledgement that forces older than human memory are stirring with intention. The awakening is not immediate totality, it is a measured, precise expansion. Each tomb world functions as both cradle and command center, activating in stages designed over millennia. Warriors move methodically, mapping every chamber, assessing every structural anomaly, and preparing for eventual contact with the surface. The Necrons do not rush, their empire is timeless, and patience is their weapon. For humanity, every tick of the clock is another moment closer to confrontation, though they remain blissfully unaware. As the first Necrons reach the surface of their tombs, the impact is immediate and terrifying in its subtlety. The earth groans under their weight, and the faint green glow of their eyes pierces the night. Machinery hums, resonating with frequencies humans cannot consciously detect. Trees tremble, rivers ripple, and even the wind carries a faint metallic resonance, a sound that is felt more than heard. It is the herald of inevitability, the first tangible evidence that the silent depths have begun to reach outward, asserting their presence on the surface world. The Necrons move with a choreography that is both alien and mesmerizing. Pistons hiss with calculated precision, skeletal limbs glide in perfect synchronization, and eyes illuminate corridors and streets with an unearthly light. Every action is purposeful, every observation catalogued for strategy, and every step forward signals the meticulous reactivation of an empire older than memory. To witness this is to confront the fragility of life itself, the awareness that human existence, beautiful and fleeting, is insignificant against such ancient precision. Yet even in the awakening, there is an eerie elegance. The geometry of the tombs, mirrored in the movement of their inhabitants, creates a symmetry that is both terrifying and awe-inspiring. Each corridor, each chamber, each line of light and shadow resonates with the calculated beauty of a civilization that measured perfection in millennia, not moments. And as the first Necrons step fully into the world above, the quiet sense of dread spreads like a fog, touching every living thing, human or animal, with the silent promise of what is to come. And so, the first stirring is complete, but it is only the beginning. Beneath the surface, the full network of the Necron Empire hums with life, synchronized and calculating. Above, humanity continues its routines, oblivious, fragile, unaware. The world teeters on the cusp of an awakening it cannot comprehend, a confrontation it cannot predict. The first stirrings have begun, and the shadows of inevitability stretch ever outward, reaching for every corner of the planet, preparing for the inevitable reckoning that will soon follow. The first signs of human awareness are subtle, almost imperceptible. Miners report strange tremors deep underground, sensing an unnatural vibration in the rock. Villagers speak of fleeting lights glimmering across fields at midnight, reflections that vanish when approached. Soldiers on remote patrols feel an unexplainable weight in the air, a sensation of being observed by eyes that see far more than flesh and bone. None of these moments signal full awareness, but they mark the first cracks in humanity's illusion of safety. Inside the tombs, the Necron warriors move with relentless purpose. Each step, each pivot, each flicker of their glowing eyes is calculated to awaken systems and assess the world above. Hallways that had been sealed for millennia are now alive with motion, machinery, and light. Ancient defense protocols, dormant for ages, are tested, realigned, and brought into readiness. Every glyph etched into the walls pulses with a new intensity, transmitting data across the vast neural network of the Empire. The awakening is methodical, unhurried, and complete in its precision. Above ground, the world begins to feel the weight of inevitability. Minor quakes ripple through cities, strange electrical surges interfere with communications, and animals flee from the unseen disturbances. To the untrained eye, these are random, unconnected events. Yet each anomaly is a harbinger, an echo of the vast intelligence stirring beneath. Humanity, blissfully ignorant, continues its routines, yet the threads of destiny have already begun to twist. Every life, every structure, every moment of ordinary existence is now within the calculated observation of an empire older than stars. The first direct encounters are fleeting but unforgettable. Workers in a remote mining colony stumble upon a chamber long sealed. The floor quakes, lights flicker, and before their eyes, skeletal forms of metal rise from stone sarcophagi. Movements are deliberate, silent, and unyielding. Panic ensues, yet the humans can only flee, for comprehension fails them. These first encounters are brief, almost dreamlike, yet they leave an indelible mark, proof that the silent depths are no longer silent, and that the inevitability encoded in the Necron Empire has reached the surface. Even as fear spreads, there is artistry in their existence. Every warrior, every machine, every glyphed corridor reflects a civilization whose understanding of precision surpasses comprehension. Movement and architecture, light and shadow, combine into a tableau of deliberate perfection. Their presence is terrifying, yes, but also awe-inspiring, a reminder that life, in its fragile beauty, is measured against forces beyond imagination. Humanity has never faced an adversary like this, not one of chaos, not one of passion, but one of absolute inevitability. And yet, despite the growing tension, the full scale of the awakening is not yet revealed. The first stirrings are only the beginning, a prelude to the coordinated resurgence that will sweep the planet. Tombs across continents hum quietly in concert, their energies linking in a network that spans the world. The warriors above ground move in synchronization with those still below, each step, each pulse of light, each subtle vibration reinforcing the inevitability of the Necron return. As the sun rises, the world seems unchanged, yet everything has shifted. Beneath the surface, networks of metal and stone thrum with power, the first wave of the Empire fully awakened and observing. Humanity, still unaware, prepares unknowingly for the confrontation that will define the fate of the planet. The first stirring has passed into history, leaving in its wake a growing tension, a pervasive dread, and the knowledge, whether recognized or not, that the silent depths have awakened, and that the world is no longer in control of its own destiny. The Necrons advance not with haste but with inevitability. The first stirrings have set the stage, awakening a civilization older than the stars, precise beyond human comprehension, and prepared to reclaim its ancient dominion. Humanity's age of ignorance is ending. The first tremors have begun, and the shadows of inevitability stretch ever outward, preparing to envelop all that stands in the path of an empire that has returned. The surface world finally begins to feel the weight of inevitability. Cities that once thrived under sunlight and the hum of human industry now stand on the edge of chaos. From the first subtle tremors beneath their feet to the eerie glimmer of green lights in abandoned alleys, the presence of the Necrons is undeniable. Streets that once bustled with commerce now echo with a hollow anticipation, as if the earth itself knows that the age of human dominance is drawing to a close. At first, the attacks are isolated, calculated, and precise. Skeletal warriors emerge from hidden tomb entrances in the outskirts of cities, striking with surgical efficiency. Their metal limbs articulate in perfect coordination, weapons discharging with unerring accuracy. Humans attempt to respond, but their defenses crumble under the precision of a civilization that has mastered warfare for millennia. Panic spreads like wildfire, not because of brute force alone, but because the enemy moves with an intelligence, patience, and inevitability that defies comprehension. Buildings that were once fortresses of human innovation shudder beneath the first encounters. Concrete and steel crack under the calculated impact of Necron weaponry. Entire districts fall silent, fires burning without warning, and streets are emptied in minutes as the populace flees the unrelenting advance. The city's architecture, designed for human resilience, is no match for the calculated tactics of beings who have fought wars across eons. Every human attempt at resistance is anticipated, countered, and catalogued for future engagement. The scale of the invasion is staggering. More than just warriors emerge from their ancient tombs, monolithic constructs, colossal in size, stride across city streets, their footsteps resonating like distant thunder. Weapons of unimaginable energy disintegrate walls, vehicles, and barricades with terrifying efficiency. Yet even in this destruction, there is a haunting precision. Nothing is wasted, nothing is random. Every action is purposeful, part of a calculated design that leaves no room for chaos. Humanity is forced to confront an enemy that is neither mindless nor passionate, it is inevitable. Amid the chaos, civilians scramble to survive. Families huddle in basements and abandoned buildings, streets fill with frantic cries, and the once orderly rhythm of daily life collapses into fear and uncertainty. The human mind struggles to comprehend the scale, the precision, and the unrelenting logic of the Necron assault. Even those trained for combat falter, their strategies rendered ineffective against an enemy that anticipates every move. In these first moments of contact, the contrast between human fragility and Necron inevitability is stark and chilling. Above, the sky is no longer a canvas of peace. Plumes of smoke rise from devastated districts, reflecting the light of burning fires against the cold, calculating presence below. Drones and reconnaissance devices attempt to map the invasion, but the Necron intelligence anticipates and neutralizes every threat. Communications falter as signals are scrambled or intercepted by the Empire that has returned from the abyss of time. The city is a stage, and every element, air, earth, infrastructure, and human behavior, has become part of the Necron calculation. And yet, there is a perverse beauty in their efficiency. Metal warriors move in perfect synchronization, their glowing eyes casting light that illuminates the devastation with eerie artistry. Every shot fired, every maneuver executed, is part of a ballet of inevitability. Streets and buildings are repurposed in real time, their destruction and use orchestrated with mechanical precision. The humans fleeing or fighting become part of this tableau, their every decision observed, analyzed, and catalogued. Even the natural world responds. Trees are flattened or set aflame as the war progresses, rivers are disrupted by collapsed infrastructure, and the winds carry the metallic hum of movement through once peaceful neighborhoods. The sensory impact is overwhelming, the sound of collapsing structures, the smell of fire and metal, the sight of green eyes glowing through smoke, all serve as a reminder that nothing human-built can resist the calculated inevitability of the Necrons. And so the siege begins not as a chaotic storm but as a meticulously orchestrated resurgence. Humanity is confronted with both terror and awe, realizing too late that the enemy is not merely strong, it is inexorable, a civilization older than memory itself, precise beyond understanding, and fully awakened. Every district conquered is a testament to millennia of preparation, and every human attempt at resistance is carefully recorded, analyzed, and nullified with unerring efficiency. The first shockwave of the Necron invasion has begun, and the cities will never again know safety, order, or peace. As the siege unfolds, the scale of human vulnerability becomes starkly apparent. Military forces mobilize, their vehicles rolling through streets, soldiers taking positions in fortified buildings, yet each move seems anticipated before it is executed. The Necrons do not rush, they advance with measured precision, their every action calculated to neutralize resistance while conserving their own energy. Explosions erupt not from chance but from perfectly targeted discharges, and in the midst of chaos, the cold logic of the invaders turns cities into elaborate chessboards, with humans as pieces moving exactly as predicted. Skyscrapers crumble under energy beams that melt steel and concrete in moments. Bridges fracture and fall into rivers below, vehicles are incinerated before their occupants can react, and streets once alive with human activity now stretch empty and desolate. The air is thick with smoke, dust, and the metallic tang of disintegrated matter. Amid this devastation, the Necron warriors move gracefully, each step deliberate, eyes scanning, assessing, and recalculating with perfect efficiency. It is as if the city itself has been transformed into a theater of inevitability. Humanity's defenses, formidable by ordinary standards, prove woefully inadequate. Tanks and artillery fire meet no resistance, yet are neutralized before they can impact the invaders. Soldiers attempt coordinated strikes, but Necron units adjust instantaneously, redirecting their force, collapsing barricades, and disarming traps. The concept of chaos, so central to human conflict, is absent in Necron operations. Every action is precise, deliberate, and inevitable. Fear spreads faster than fire, as the realization dawns that this is not an enemy to be fought in conventional terms. In the midst of destruction, civilians cling to hope, fleeing through alleys, hiding in basements, and seeking refuge in structures that seem impossibly fragile against the mechanical juggernauts moving outside. Yet every route is anticipated, every exit mapped. The Necron's awareness extends beyond mere sight or sound, it is a networked consciousness that perceives movement, predicts decisions, and calculates outcomes with millennial patience. Humanity struggles to comprehend, to react, to survive, and yet, in this struggle, the inevitability of the Necron advance becomes undeniable. Above the city, the sky darkens not from clouds but from smoke and debris. Helicopters falter as energy beams disrupt electronics, drones fall from the air, and communication networks fail under the assault. The once familiar skyline is transformed into a battlefield of alien calculation. Humans experience terror not only for their survival but for the realization that nothing in their constructed world can resist the precision of an empire that has returned from the depths of time. Even in their methodical destruction, the Necrons exhibit a strange elegance. Their skeletal forms glide through rubble-strewn streets, eyes glowing, limbs moving with fluid, mechanical grace. Every strike, every movement, resonates with the artistry of calculated inevitability. It is not chaos that defines them, but absolute order, a return to balance on terms dictated by a civilization older than memory itself. Witnessing it is both terrifying and mesmerizing, a reminder of human fragility against the relentless logic of ancient power. The siege expands from district to district with the efficiency of a well-oiled machine. What humans perceive as panic is, in reality, a reaction entirely anticipated, accounted for in the Necron strategy. Each collapsing building, each blocked street, each frightened individual is data integrated into the larger network of awareness. The city itself becomes a battlefield shaped not by chance or emotion but by calculation, a grim demonstration of what occurs when humanity faces forces older, wiser, and more inexorably patient than itself. And as night falls, the city is no longer recognizable. Fires illuminate skeletal warriors moving in silent precision, the echoes of collapsed structures punctuating the air, and shadows stretch unnaturally, reflecting the cold green glow of Necron eyes. Humanity has survived the first onslaught, barely, but the psychological weight is immense. Fear has become tangible, suffocating, and pervasive. The siege is not merely physical, it is existential, a reminder that the Necrons do not merely destroy, they reclaim, calculate, and assert the inevitability of their return. As the siege deepens, humanity's attempts at resistance begin to falter completely. Soldiers are pushed back, barricades fail, and command centers are overrun or incapacitated by the precision of Necron operations. Every countermeasure, every strategic maneuver, is anticipated and neutralized. It is not brute force alone that overwhelms the defenders, but the terrifying intelligence and inevitability of an empire awakened after millennia. The city trembles under the weight of ancient logic made manifest in living metal. Civilians flee in every direction, creating chaotic streams of movement that the Necrons anticipate effortlessly. Streets once full of life are now corridors of fear, as families abandon homes, vehicles are left to rust and burn, and the cries of the displaced echo across shattered neighborhoods. Yet, even in their escape, humans are observed, tracked, and accounted for in the Necron network. Nothing is missed, every action becomes part of the data set, every reaction measured for future encounters. Humanity is learning, too late, the terrifying difference between instinct and calculation. In the heart of the city, monumental Necron constructs stride through avenues with calm inevitability. Their limbs articulate with perfection, their weapons discharge with devastating accuracy, and their glowing eyes illuminate devastation in a precise, almost artistic pattern. Entire districts collapse under their presence, yet the destruction is never random. Each fallen building, each disintegrated barricade, serves a calculated purpose, clearing paths, isolating targets, and ensuring that no human action goes unpredicted or unaccounted for. Above the chaos, the night sky is illuminated by the eerie glow of energy discharges. Fires, explosions, and the glint of metal on metal create a surreal, almost cinematic tableau of destruction. The sound is overwhelming, pulsing hums of machinery, the hiss of weapons, the roar of collapsing infrastructure, but beneath it all lies a rhythm, a precise cadence that speaks to the intelligence and inevitability of the invaders. Humans perceive it as chaos, yet it is orchestrated with millennia of experience and design. Amid the destruction, whispers of heroism emerge. Small bands of soldiers and civilians attempt to mount resistance, improvising strategies, creating traps, and striking where opportunity allows. But the Necrons are adaptive, relentless, and patient. Every maneuver is observed, every pattern recorded, and every human attempt at defiance is met with precise countermeasures. Even success is temporary, fleeting, a brief flash before inevitability reasserts itself. The city is no longer a home, it is a stage for an ancient civilization's return to dominance. The psychological impact is profound. Humans, though resilient, begin to comprehend the scale and precision of the enemy. Fear becomes pervasive, a suffocating weight pressing down on every street, every building, every heart. Soldiers hesitate, families panic, and the natural instinct for survival clashes with the realization that the Necron presence is inexorable. The mind struggles to adapt to an opponent that moves with unerring logic, patience, and an understanding of consequence far beyond human experience. And yet, even in the devastation, there is an artistry to the invasion. The symmetry of destruction, the choreography of movement, the glowing eyes casting light across streets and ruins, it is terrifying, yes, but it also conveys a cold, mechanical beauty. Humanity experiences awe and horror simultaneously, recognizing that what they face is not merely an army, but a civilization that embodies inevitability itself. Every action, every calculated move, reinforces the lesson that resistance may be noble, but it is finite. As dawn approaches, the city is forever changed. Fires smolder among skeletal ruins, smoke rises to the sky, and the survivors cling to the fragile hope that tomorrow may bring a chance for survival. But the Necrons do not rest. Their network pulses with renewed awareness, their patrols consolidate, and the next phase of reclamation prepares to unfold. Humanity has felt the first true weight of inevitability. The siege of the cities is not over, it has only begun, and the shadows of an ancient empire stretch ever further, prepared to envelop all that remains in calculated dominion. In the wake of devastation, the human spirit begins to stir. Among the rubble of shattered cities, pockets of survivors gather, forming the first threads of organized resistance. Fear still lingers, heavy and pervasive, yet within it lies determination. Soldiers, engineers, and civilians alike band together, combining knowledge, ingenuity, and courage to create the fragile scaffolding of defiance. For the first time, humanity begins to understand the true scale of the enemy and, with that understanding, begins to respond. The resistance is born not from hope alone, but from necessity. Military units consolidate, exchanging intelligence, sharing scarce resources, and establishing communication lines amidst the chaos. Civilians contribute in every way possible, offering shelter, medical aid, and reconnaissance. What emerges is a mosaic of human resilience, a tapestry of determination forged in fire and shadow. Each act of defiance, no matter how small, becomes a thread in a web of resistance that stretches across the beleaguered cityscape. Yet the Necrons observe with unerring precision. Every movement of the humans, every improvised barricade, every whispered plan is detected, analyzed, and catalogued. The invader's awareness is not limited to sight or sound, it extends across networks, chambers, and the very vibrations of the earth. They anticipate strategies, counter-maneuvers, and the human instinct to regroup and retaliate. In this dance between calculation and improvisation, the first clashes occur, brief yet telling. Humans strike with courage, but the enemy moves with inevitability. The first encounters between Necron forces and human combatants are brutal and precise. Soldiers set ambushes, only to find their traps anticipated and neutralized. Explosions designed to collapse corridors or disable units fail against Necron resilience. Yet these small, fleeting successes teach humanity lessons that are difficult, painful, but essential. Resistance adapts, evolves, and begins to experiment with tactics untested in conventional warfare. Each skirmish becomes a lesson, each narrow escape a story of survival, each failure a step toward understanding an enemy older and more precise than anything previously encountered. Civilians, too, find ways to resist. They form support networks, deliver supplies under cover of darkness, and create safe havens in the remnants of cities. Engineers repurpose damaged vehicles, modify weapons, and develop defensive technology using limited resources. Children are hidden, elders protected, and knowledge preserved. Every action is a small rebellion against inevitability, a statement that humanity, though fragile, refuses to vanish quietly beneath the shadow of an ancient empire. The psychology of resistance is as crucial as physical action. Morale becomes both weapon and shield. Stories of survival spread through whispered networks, instilling courage where despair threatens to dominate. Leaders emerge, individuals whose intuition and experience help guide groups through the chaos. The smallest victories, saving a family, securing a district, holding a choke point, become monumental, reinforcing the understanding that the Necron advance, while inevitable in scale, is not absolute in immediate effect. Meanwhile, the Necrons adjust. They do not act with haste, but they act with awareness. Every human tactic is analyzed and accounted for, every network of resistance noted for future engagement. Their movements are deliberate, their attacks precise, and their understanding of human behavior unparalleled. Yet, for the first time, the unpredictability of human spirit introduces variables into the Necron calculations, fleeting anomalies that intrigue their logical consciousness, patterns that test even the most patient and experienced of ancient minds. As the first defensive perimeters are established, the cityscape transforms. Abandoned streets become fortified corridors, ruined buildings turn into command posts, and underground passages serve as lifelines for movement and communication. Humanity begins to grasp the interplay between environment and strategy, understanding that knowledge, adaptation, and willpower can, at least temporarily, slow the inexorable march of their adversary. Each day of survival becomes a small victory, proof that resistance, while dangerous and costly, is possible. And so, in the heart of devastation, the first true resistance emerges. It is fragile, incomplete, and tentative, yet it is alive. Humanity begins to push back, not with the certainty of victory, but with the certainty of defiance. The Necrons watch, adapt, and calculate, aware of this new variable in their equation. The city, once a theater of inevitable destruction, now becomes a battlefield of innovation, courage, and survival. The struggle is only beginning, and in it lies both terror and a glimmer of hope. The resistance grows bolder with each passing day. Small victories, though fleeting, inspire new strategies and reinforce the belief that the Necrons are not infallible. Sniper teams strike from hidden vantage points, targeting key units, while engineers rig improvised traps along known patrol routes. Civilians provide intelligence, guiding soldiers through labyrinthine streets and subterranean passages. Every successful ambush or narrowly avoided capture becomes a lesson, an iteration in the ongoing experiment of survival. The Necrons, though ancient and precise, begin to encounter anomalies, moments of unpredictability that challenge their calculations. Human adaptability, improvisation, and sheer determination create variables that ripple through their meticulously planned strategies. It is not chaos in the human sense, but it is deviation from expectation. Each deviation is recorded, analyzed, and accounted for in the broader strategy, yet even the most methodical mind cannot fully anticipate the ingenuity born from desperation. In the ruined city centers, resistance cells establish networks of communication. Messages are passed through tunnels, couriers risk life and limb, and coded signals flash across the shattered skyline. These networks are lifelines, allowing coordination of movements, sharing of supplies, and the planning of counterattacks. Humanity is learning to exploit the environment itself. The fractured streets, collapsed buildings, and abandoned subways become tools in the ongoing struggle. Even the smallest innovation, a hidden passage, a makeshift barricade, or a decoy, can save lives and disrupt the predictable precision of the Necron advance. Skirmishes erupt across districts as humans attempt to regain control, striking when opportunity allows. Each encounter is tense, unpredictable, and harrowing. Soldiers fire, maneuver, and retreat with precision born of necessity, while the Necrons respond with cold calculation. Lives are lost, neighborhoods are devastated, yet every act of resistance is a testament to human resilience. The Necron calculations adapt, incorporating new patterns and behaviors, but the unpredictability of human determination introduces challenges that were absent in millennia of prior campaigns. Amid the chaos, leaders emerge. Individuals with vision and courage take command of resistance cells, organizing civilians, soldiers, and resources into coordinated efforts. Their decisions are quick, decisive, and often unconventional. They learn to anticipate not only the Necrons' movements but also their own limitations. Every plan is a calculated risk, every maneuver a test of ingenuity and willpower. And even when plans fail, knowledge is preserved, lessons are learned, and the resistance grows stronger in spirit and coordination. The environment itself becomes a silent ally to humanity. Ruined buildings provide cover, subterranean tunnels allow undetected movement, and the natural landscape aids in concealment. Engineers and tacticians exploit every feature of the city to level the playing field, converting destruction into opportunity. It is a slow, painful process, but it demonstrates that even in the shadow of inevitability, adaptation and innovation can create moments of advantage. Psychologically, the resistance instills hope. Stories of survival, daring escapes, and successful skirmishes spread rapidly among civilians. Even in the darkest moments, the knowledge that others have endured inspires courage. Fear remains, heavy and pervasive, but it is now tempered by determination. Humanity begins to understand that while the Necrons are inevitable in power and precision, they are not omnipotent in presence. Every day survived, every small victory, reinforces the belief that resistance, though costly, is possible. Yet the Necrons observe, learn, and adjust with terrifying patience. Every human tactic is noted, every improvisation catalogued, every variation incorporated into their calculations. The network of awakened warriors adapts, preparing for countermeasures, adjusting patrols, and reinforcing weak points. Humanity's ingenuity becomes a factor in the Necron strategy, a variable that adds tension, challenge, and drama to the unfolding siege. And so, the resistance emerges not as a force of victory, but as a manifestation of human spirit. It is chaotic, fragmented, and imperfect, yet it moves with purpose. It challenges the precision of a civilization older than memory itself, introducing unpredictability, adaptation, and hope into a world dominated by inevitability. The stage is set for escalating confrontation, as humanity proves, against all odds, that even in the shadow of the Necrons, life refuses to yield without a fight. As the resistance solidifies, the city begins to transform into a battleground of strategy and ingenuity. Streets that once echoed with normal life are now arteries of movement, lined with barricades, traps, and improvised fortifications. Resistance cells coordinate, sharing intelligence about patrol patterns, weak points, and timing. Every successful evasion or ambush becomes part of a growing body of knowledge, building a map of survival that humans rely on in their struggle against an enemy older than time itself. The Necrons, aware of these developments, adjust their methods with meticulous care. Patrol routes are altered, overlapping fields of observation established, and areas previously untouched now become zones of concentrated vigilance. They do not panic, they do not act recklessly. Each adaptation is a calculated response, an integration of human unpredictability into the wider strategic framework of reclamation. Even in their patience, there is a subtle acknowledgement: humanity, though fragile, is learning, adapting, and complicating the path of inevitability. Skirmishes escalate in intensity. Resistance teams strike at weakly defended corridors, sabotage energy conduits, and occasionally eliminate key Necron units. Each engagement is brief, violent, and precise, leaving both human and Necron forces with new data to incorporate. Civilians caught in the crossfire learn to hide, reroute, or aid the fighters, transforming everyday spaces into tools of survival. A school becomes a command center, a factory a fortress, and abandoned subways the lifeline of movement and communication. Humanity adapts, turning desperation into resourcefulness. The psychological battle is as fierce as the physical one. Fear remains pervasive, yet hope grows in tandem. Small victories, such as a successfully defended district or the survival of a civilian group, are amplified into symbols of defiance. Stories circulate through whispers, notes, and coded signals, strengthening morale and encouraging further resistance. Courage spreads, quietly yet persistently, reinforcing the notion that even in the shadow of millennia-old inevitability, humanity retains the power to act, to adapt, and to survive. Yet the Necrons' response is unwavering. Observing every act, predicting each maneuver, their network adapts in real time. Energy grids are rerouted, patrols are reinforced, and previously untested tactics are neutralized before humans can exploit them fully. Every human innovation becomes a variable in the ever-expanding calculations of a civilization that has mastered war across eons. The resistance, though valiant, is a spark in the machinery of inevitability, small, fleeting, yet undeniable in its challenge. In the midst of this conflict, leadership emerges as a crucial factor. Individuals who demonstrate insight, courage, and adaptability rise to coordinate efforts across districts, ensuring that knowledge is shared, supplies are distributed, and strategies are executed with cohesion. Decisions are made swiftly, balancing risk and necessity, and every success, however minor, reinforces the fragile network of human defiance. The resistance becomes more than survival, it becomes a statement of intent. As the days progress, the interplay between human ingenuity and Necron inevitability intensifies. Skirmishes become larger, ambushes more sophisticated, and every interaction a lesson in adaptation. Humans exploit terrain, environmental anomalies, and knowledge gained from prior engagements, while the Necrons adjust with patient precision, integrating new patterns into their ever-expanding strategic awareness. The city, scarred and broken, becomes a living record of conflict, a testament to human resilience and the relentless logic of the Necron Empire. And so, the resistance emerges fully into the narrative of the siege. It is imperfect, fragile, and constantly tested, yet it thrives in the face of overwhelming odds. Humanity, despite its limitations, proves capable of ingenuity, adaptability, and courage. The first sparks of organized defiance have ignited, setting the stage for escalating confrontation, deeper strategy, and the unfolding drama of survival against an enemy that embodies inevitability itself. The war is no longer only about survival, it is about asserting the human spirit, refusing to vanish quietly beneath the shadows of a civilization older than memory. In this crucible of fire, fear, and ingenuity, the first true chapter of resistance is written, and humanity, though battered and uncertain, begins to claim its place as an active participant in the struggle, rather than a passive victim of destiny. The first sparks of organized resistance ignite a response not just in the human defenders, but also in the tactical calculations of the Necrons. For centuries, they have anticipated, observed, and manipulated civilizations with a patience that outlasts empires. Yet now, humanity is no longer static, no longer predictable. They adapt, they improvise, they fight with a desperation that introduces variables into the long-calculated plans of an ancient empire. And so the counteroffensive begins, a deliberate engagement of human ingenuity against millennia of precision. The resistance, having survived initial assaults, begins to coordinate larger operations. Strategic districts are reinforced, supply chains established, and intelligence networks expanded to cover more of the devastated cityscape. Small victories in isolated skirmishes build confidence, while observation teams map Necron movements and patrol routines. Civilians and soldiers alike understand that survival is insufficient, they must act to reclaim their world. Every decision carries weight, every maneuver is calculated with the understanding that failure means annihilation. The first major engagements are cautious yet bold. Resistance teams strike at lightly defended Necron patrols, targeting energy conduits, communication nodes, and isolated units. Explosions echo through streets and alleys, signaling the audacity of humans willing to confront inevitability. Guerrilla tactics dominate, hit-and-run attacks, diversionary strikes, and underground movements designed to exploit the environment. Every success, though fleeting, sends ripples of hope through the surviving population, a reminder that action, even small, can alter the immediate course of the siege. The Necrons, for their part, observe with unerring calculation. Their networked consciousness records every tactic, every deviation from expectation, and incorporates it into future plans. Patrols adjust, reinforcements are dispatched, and energy fields are reconfigured to counter human ingenuity. Yet even as they adapt, the presence of unpredictable human spirit forces adjustments not previously necessary in millennia of prior campaigns. The counteroffensive, small as it may seem, becomes an experiment in defiance, one that the Necrons must account for with methodical patience. Engineers and technicians within the resistance emerge as vital contributors. Improvised weapons are developed, sabotaged machinery repurposed, and the environment itself exploited to create traps and defensive positions. Makeshift command centers coordinate ambushes, while tunnels, subways, and ruined buildings serve as conduits for movement and concealment. Each successful strike against the Necrons, however minor, is amplified into strategic knowledge, allowing the human forces to evolve tactics, anticipate reactions, and probe weaknesses in the alien calculus of inevitability. The psychological component is equally significant. Morale rises with each successful engagement, creating a feedback loop of courage and action. Stories of daring strikes, rescued civilians, and temporarily held positions spread across the city, reinforcing the belief that humanity, though fragile, has not yet been extinguished. Fear remains, but it is tempered by agency, by the knowledge that action, however dangerous, can create opportunities where none seemed possible. The resistance is no longer merely reactive, it is a force asserting its presence in the conflict. As engagements intensify, the city itself transforms into a complex battlefield. Streets are barricaded, buildings fortified, and rooftops become sniper positions. Subterranean passages, once abandoned, become lifelines for transport, observation, and surprise attacks. The interplay of destruction and adaptation reshapes the environment, creating both hazards and advantages. Human ingenuity turns ruins into tools, uncertainty into opportunity, and fear into tactical awareness. Each district becomes a theater of contest between precision and improvisation, inevitability and willpower. The first sustained victories, however small, carry immense significance. They prove that human action can disrupt, delay, and even temporarily outmaneuver the seemingly flawless precision of the Necron forces. Energy conduits are destroyed, patrols ambushed, and critical positions held against overwhelming odds. Every success is fleeting yet monumental, a reminder that the battle is not only for territory, but for agency, spirit, and the assertion of life against inevitability. Even as humans strike back, the Necrons observe, adapt, and refine. Their response is measured, calculated, and unhurried. Every engagement teaches, every disruption is analyzed, and the Empire's next moves are informed by the unpredictable variable of human resistance. Yet, the audacity of action, the determination to fight, and the willingness to embrace risk begins to ripple through the network, a reminder that even the most ancient, methodical adversary can be challenged by courage and ingenuity. And so, the counteroffensive unfolds, not as a dramatic victory, but as a testament to human determination. It is methodical, adaptive, and courageous, a declaration that humanity refuses to vanish quietly under the shadow of inevitability. The stage is set for escalating confrontations, larger strategies, and the realization that the war for survival is also a war for identity, spirit, and the assertion of life against forces older and more precise than imagination can grasp. The counteroffensive grows in scale and complexity. Resistance teams no longer operate solely in isolated districts, coordinated strikes span multiple zones, targeting supply lines, energy nodes, and communication hubs. Guerrilla tactics evolve into semi-organized campaigns, blending improvisation with strategy. Every action is calculated for maximum disruption, yet executed with the instinctive courage born from desperation. Humanity has begun to transform the urban battlefield into a living map of opportunity and resistance. Necron forces respond with eerie precision. Patrol patterns shift, reinforcements are dispatched with calculated timing, and areas of high human activity are monitored and neutralized with unrelenting efficiency. Yet, the adaptive unpredictability of human action creates challenges. Makeshift traps succeed unexpectedly, ambushes exploit terrain in ways not previously accounted for, and resourceful combatants introduce variables that ripple through the Necron calculations. For the first time in millennia, the enemy must adjust not only to resistance but to ingenuity itself. In the shadow of ruined skyscrapers, resistance fighters learn to manipulate the environment. Collapsed streets become choke points, derelict buildings provide sniper positions, and underground tunnels serve as arteries for movement and surprise attacks. Engineers repurpose scavenged materials to create improvised weapons and defensive structures. Every day brings lessons, successes and failures alike, which are rapidly incorporated into ongoing operations. The human approach becomes fluid, adaptive, and unpredictable, forcing the Necrons to respond with an intensity previously unnecessary in their calculated campaigns. Skirmishes intensify, often erupting without warning. Explosions echo through streets as resistance units strike energy conduits, disrupt patrols, or sabotage machinery. The clash of human improvisation and Necron inevitability creates a tense rhythm: advance, counter, retreat, adapt. Each engagement teaches, strengthens, and reshapes tactics. Every narrow escape or temporary hold becomes a story, a lesson, and a symbol of resilience. For civilians and fighters alike, these moments ignite hope, however fragile, in the face of overwhelming odds. Leadership within the resistance becomes crucial. Experienced strategists coordinate multiple cells, optimizing timing, resources, and positioning. Every decision carries weight, balancing risk against potential reward. Coordination improves communication, prevents redundancy, and enhances the impact of human actions. While losses are inevitable, the ability to adapt and share knowledge transforms isolated bravery into collective force. Humanity begins to act not merely as scattered survivors, but as a coordinated entity capable of sustained action against a seemingly invincible foe. The Necrons, though relentless, begin to acknowledge the impact of unpredictability. Their calculations incorporate patterns that were once unnecessary, refining patrols and defensive measures. Yet the persistence of human resistance, small victories, ingenious tactics, and psychological resilience, creates anomalies that ripple through the ancient network. Each disruption is observed, measured, and accounted for, but even a civilization older than the stars cannot entirely remove the wild, chaotic element of human spirit. Civilians, too, play an increasing role in the counteroffensive. Underground networks transport supplies, relay information, and coordinate safe passages through dangerous areas. Communities adapt to the constant threat, converting homes, schools, and factories into support bases and observation posts. Their courage and resourcefulness reinforce the larger strategy, proving that survival is not merely physical but also organizational and psychological. The counteroffensive reaches a new intensity when multiple districts engage simultaneously. Ambushes, diversions, and coordinated strikes place pressure on Necron forces, forcing them to allocate resources more broadly and adapt to a complex, multivector threat. Energy conduits are disrupted, patrols rerouted, and temporary victories inspire further action. Each engagement, though small in scale, becomes part of a larger symphony of resistance, a growing testament to human ingenuity against the unyielding logic of an ancient empire. Even in the midst of uncertainty and loss, the human spirit strengthens. Hope, once fragile, now coexists with fear. Courage emerges from desperation, and every success reinforces the notion that even against overwhelming inevitability, action matters. The counteroffensive is no longer simply about survival, it is a demonstration of defiance, intelligence, and the enduring capacity of humanity to adapt, fight, and endure. And so, the battle continues, a delicate, brutal dance between calculation and ingenuity, inevitability and willpower. Humanity's counteroffensive, though dangerous and imperfect, has become undeniable. It is a statement that life, spirit, and defiance persist, even when confronted with forces older, wiser, and more precise than imagination can fully comprehend. The stage is set for escalation, and the conflict between ancient inevitability and human determination intensifies with every passing moment. As the counteroffensive progresses, the city itself becomes a living battlefield of strategy, ingenuity, and relentless adaptation. Streets are barricaded with debris, rooftops serve as sniper perches, and subterranean tunnels connect resistance cells across districts. Every corner, alley, and building becomes both obstacle and opportunity, transformed by human determination into instruments of defiance. The Necrons, despite their precision, are forced to confront a reality in which human unpredictability shapes the flow of battle. Major engagements erupt with growing frequency. Resistance teams coordinate simultaneous strikes on multiple Necron patrols, energy conduits, and critical nodes. Explosions shake the fractured skyline, fires flare along streets, and the metallic hum of Necron movement reverberates through the city. Humans adapt to each encounter, altering routes, tactics, and timing in real time. Every skirmish leaves lessons, successes to be replicated, failures to be avoided, and the constant knowledge that survival requires both courage and ingenuity. The Necrons respond with cold efficiency. Reinforcements are deployed with calculated precision, patrols shift dynamically, and energy barriers are reconfigured to counter human maneuvers. Yet the persistence of resistance introduces anomalies into their calculations. Ambushes succeed unexpectedly, traps disrupt patterns, and clever improvisation forces adjustments that ripple across the network. For the first time, a civilization older than memory encounters not just survival, but defiance that challenges the inevitability of conquest. Civilians continue to play a critical role. Couriers traverse dangerous streets, delivering supplies and intelligence. Safehouses provide shelter and coordination hubs. Engineers repurpose scavenged materials to create weapons and defenses. Their courage amplifies the counteroffensive, proving that survival is not solely a military endeavor, but a collective effort in which every action counts. Even small victories, a rescued family, a temporarily held position, a sabotaged patrol, carry significance far beyond their immediate impact. Leadership within the resistance grows sharper. Strategists coordinate multi-district maneuvers, optimizing timing and positioning for maximum effect. Lessons from each encounter are shared quickly, creating a feedback loop that improves efficiency, reduces losses, and strengthens morale. This coordination transforms scattered acts of bravery into an organized force capable of sustained action. Humanity, though still fragile, begins to assert its presence on the battlefield. The psychological impact on both sides is profound. Fear, though ever present among humans, is tempered by the knowledge that their actions can influence outcomes. Small victories inspire hope, and stories of daring strikes circulate rapidly, reinforcing courage and determination. For the Necrons, human unpredictability represents an anomaly, data to be observed, analyzed, and incorporated into calculations. The ancient empire has never encountered a variable quite like human resilience and ingenuity. As the cityscape becomes a patchwork of controlled zones, contested areas, and ruins, the counteroffensive escalates. Strategic points are seized, patrols disrupted, and temporary strongholds established. Every successful engagement undermines the illusion of inevitability, forcing the Necrons to recalibrate. Yet the enemy remains patient, calculating, and relentless. They respond not with haste, but with measured adaptation, incorporating every anomaly into their ongoing strategy of reclamation. The interplay of action and reaction shapes the narrative of survival. Humanity strikes, adapts, and survives. The Necrons observe, calculate, and adjust. The battlefield becomes a living testament to both ingenuity and inevitability, a crucible in which courage, knowledge, and persistence confront the unyielding precision of an ancient empire. Every skirmish, every ambush, every narrow escape contributes to a growing saga of defiance and survival. By the end of this phase, the counteroffensive has established itself as a force to be reckoned with. Humanity, battered and tested, has proven capable of coordinated action, adaptive strategy, and courageous defiance. The Necrons, though still overwhelmingly powerful, must acknowledge the variable of unpredictability. The stage is set for the next escalation, larger battles, higher stakes, and the ever-present tension between ancient inevitability and the enduring human spirit. And so, the counteroffensive solidifies as a defining chapter in the struggle. It is neither complete victory nor total survival, but it is proof that humanity refuses to yield quietly. Life, ingenuity, and defiance endure in the shadow of inevitability, setting the stage for the next phase of conflict, a battle that will determine not only the survival of cities, but the very assertion of human will against forces older than history itself. The city, scarred and weary, begins to sense a subtle shift. The tide of conflict, once overwhelmingly in favor of inevitability, starts to reveal cracks in the armor of the ancient invaders. The Necrons, precise and patient, still dominate the battlefield, but the cumulative effect of human ingenuity, coordination, and courage begins to introduce real consequences into the once flawless calculations of their campaign. The first true glimmers of hope emerge, not as certainty, but as possibility. Resistant cells, emboldened by earlier skirmishes, coordinate larger, more audacious operations. Entire districts are monitored simultaneously, supply lines disrupted, and critical infrastructure targeted. Each engagement is meticulously planned, exploiting weaknesses observed over weeks of brutal conflict. Human ingenuity transforms the environment into a battlefield of opportunity. Derelict factories become command centers, tunnels allow stealthy movements across city zones, and abandoned streets serve as ambush corridors. Even in devastation, strategy takes root. The first significant victories are both tactical and symbolic. A major Necron patrol is neutralized through a combination of explosive traps, coordinated sniper fire, and guerrilla maneuvers. The operation, though costly, demonstrates the potential of combined action and careful planning. Civilians, engineers, and soldiers alike contribute, turning desperation into method, fear into determination. The victory resonates beyond the battlefield. It becomes a testament to human adaptability and the ability to challenge what was once deemed inevitable. Yet the Necrons respond with chilling patience. Their calculations evolve, incorporating the lessons of human unpredictability. Patrols adapt, reinforcements arrive with precise timing, and energy grids are restructured to prevent further disruption. They are methodical, relentless, and unflinching, yet the emergence of a persistent, coordinated resistance has introduced variables that ripple through even the most ancient and precise of strategies. The turning point is not yet total, but it is undeniable. Psychologically, the human defenders feel the weight of momentum. Small successes feed courage, determination, and morale, reinforcing the belief that action matters. Survivors share knowledge, refine tactics, and mentor new fighters. Every successful operation, every narrowly avoided capture, every temporary hold of territory strengthens the network of resistance. The Necrons, once unchallenged, now encounter a foe capable of adaptation, foresight, and improvisation, a civilization in miniature, daring to defy millennia of inevitability. Amid the urban battlefield, leadership emerges as a decisive factor. Experienced strategists coordinate multi-district operations, synchronize attacks, and predict enemy responses. Every maneuver is executed with precision, every decision balancing risk against the potential for long-term gain. Leaders inspire not through orders alone but through example, moving alongside fighters, improvising under fire, and demonstrating the resilience that is now central to the human campaign. The environment itself becomes an active participant. Collapsed streets are turned into traps, rooftops serve as observation points, and tunnels become arteries for covert movement. The city, once a theater of destruction, transforms into a landscape of resistance and opportunity. Engineers and tacticians repurpose debris into defensive structures, redirecting the flow of battle and creating zones where human initiative can counterbalance Necron inevitability. Skirmishes intensify, with both sides adapting to the evolving struggle. Humans strike at key nodes, disrupt patrols, and exploit gaps in Necron formations. The Necrons respond by reassigning units, recalibrating patrol routes, and strengthening defenses. Yet the cumulative effect of human action begins to slow the relentless advance. For the first time, the city experiences moments of reprieve, brief windows in which survivors can regroup, resupply, and prepare for the next engagement. This turning point is as much psychological as it is physical. The knowledge that action can influence outcomes transforms despair into determination. Each victory, no matter how fleeting, carries symbolic weight, reinforcing the understanding that humanity, while fragile, possesses the ability to alter the course of conflict. Fear remains, but it is now tempered by strategy, courage, and the assertion of will against inevitability. And so, the battle reaches a critical inflection. Humanity has proven that survival is not passive, that defiance is not futile, and that even against forces older than memory itself, ingenuity and courage can create ripples of change. The turning point is not the end, nor a decisive victory, but the emergence of possibility, the understanding that inevitability can be challenged, that action can influence outcomes, and that the human spirit, though battered, refuses to be extinguished. The momentum of the counteroffensive begins to ripple through the city. Human forces, having established stronger coordination, launch synchronized attacks across multiple districts. Ambushes are executed with careful timing, traps are placed in anticipation of predictable patrol patterns, and intelligence networks allow fighters to strike where the Necrons are most vulnerable. Each operation, though small in scale, represents a significant evolution in strategy, demonstrating that even in the shadow of overwhelming power, ingenuity and courage can carve openings in the enemy's armor. For the Necrons, these developments are both familiar and alien. Their calculations, honed over millennia, anticipate outcomes with precision. Yet the adaptive and improvisational nature of human resistance introduces irregularities that ripple through their strategies. Each unexpected maneuver, every deviation from predicted patterns, forces adjustments in patrols, allocation of resources, and defensive measures. The once unassailable certainty of Necron inevitability is now challenged, and the balance of engagement begins to shift, incrementally, yet perceptibly. Resistance fighters exploit these openings with creativity. Collapsed buildings become vantage points for snipers, tunnels allow covert transportation of supplies, and abandoned vehicles are rigged to serve as improvised weapons or barricades. Engineers innovate, adapting scavenged materials to augment armaments or reinforce defenses. Civilians contribute with reconnaissance, logistical support, and coordination of communication networks. Every small act, when aggregated, creates an environment in which the Necrons can be forced to react, adapt, and occasionally falter. Skirmishes intensify in both frequency and complexity. Human fighters strike at energy conduits, disrupt supply chains, and ambush isolated units. Explosions and fireballs punctuate the night sky, while the metallic hum of Necron machinery underscores the relentless precision of the invader. Yet human ingenuity finds gaps, exploits timing, and capitalizes on environmental factors. Narrow escapes, successful strikes, and temporary holds of territory generate both tangible advantage and symbolic momentum, reinforcing the growing belief that the tide may, at last, be shifting. Leadership plays a pivotal role in consolidating this momentum. Veteran strategists coordinate multi-cell operations, synchronize attacks, and anticipate countermeasures. Decisions are executed with both speed and foresight, balancing risk against potential long-term gain. Leaders inspire through courage, adaptability, and decisiveness, demonstrating that even under the pressure of overwhelming odds, human will and intellect can alter the flow of conflict. Their presence transforms scattered acts of bravery into cohesive, effective resistance. The psychological impact of these developments cannot be overstated. Hope, once a fragile ember, begins to grow into a guiding force. Survivors share accounts of daring strikes, successful ambushes, and narrowly avoided annihilation. Fear, though still present, is now tempered by evidence of efficacy. The human spirit, emboldened by incremental victories, asserts itself with growing confidence. Even against a foe whose existence spans millennia, the notion of agency, of influence over outcomes, reclaims ground lost to despair. Meanwhile, the Necrons adapt, their response measured, deliberate, and unhurried. Patrols are redirected, energy grids are fortified, and strategic reinforcements deployed. Yet the unpredictability of human action, born from improvisation, courage, and desperation, remains a variable, complicating even the most meticulous of calculations. The ancient empire confronts a civilization that refuses to behave predictably, and in doing so, experiences for the first time in millennia the subtle tension of uncertainty. As the days of conflict continue, the city becomes a living map of contest, strategy, and adaptation. Ruined streets, collapsed buildings, and subterranean passages are repurposed to serve both survival and tactical advantage. Each district, each skirmish, each act of courage contributes to a larger mosaic of resistance. Human actions, though fragmented and imperfect, begin to shape the battle, asserting that even in the shadow of inevitability, determination can produce tangible results. By the end of this phase, the turning point is no longer theoretical, it is manifest. The human counteroffensive, refined, coordinated, and emboldened, has begun to challenge the dominance of the Necrons. While ultimate victory remains distant, and the threat of annihilation still looms, humanity has demonstrated the capacity to influence outcomes, disrupt calculations, and survive where extinction once seemed certain. The battle is evolving, the stakes higher, and the struggle more complex than ever. The turning point solidifies as human resistance begins to operate with unprecedented cohesion. Districts once isolated now coordinate, sharing intelligence, supplies, and personnel. Ambushes are synchronized across multiple zones, creating pressure points that force Necron units to respond in ways they had not anticipated. Even minor successes are amplified through strategy and morale, transforming isolated victories into a broader wave of influence. The balance, once entirely in favor of inevitability, begins to shift ever so slightly toward human agency. Major operations begin to target Necron infrastructure directly. Energy conduits powering strategic nodes are sabotaged, patrols are lured into traps, and isolated units are systematically eliminated. Each action, though meticulously planned, carries the weight of risk, as failure could lead to annihilation. Yet the knowledge that these strikes can create openings, however fleeting, infuses resistance fighters with purpose and determination. Every successful engagement reinforces the notion that even the most ancient and precise adversary can be challenged by courage, ingenuity, and coordination. Civilians, too, play an integral role in this new phase. Underground networks deliver supplies and intelligence, safehouses offer shelter and coordination points, and engineers improvise weapons and fortifications from the debris around them. Their participation transforms survival into collective action, demonstrating that defiance is not solely the domain of trained soldiers but a shared endeavor. The human spirit, nurtured by necessity and resilience, blossoms in small yet profound ways, altering the dynamics of the battlefield. The Necrons respond with methodical adaptation. Their patrols shift, reinforcements are allocated with precision, and energy fields are recalibrated to counter emerging strategies. Yet, even in their patience, the unpredictability of human action introduces complexity. Ambushes succeed unexpectedly, improvised traps disrupt calculated maneuvers, and coordinated assaults force reassessment. A civilization that has mastered inevitability for millennia now confronts a foe whose resilience and creativity cannot be fully predicted or neutralized. Leadership proves decisive. Commanders coordinate multi-district operations, synchronize timing, and anticipate Necron countermeasures. Their decisions, guided by experience and intuition, amplify the effectiveness of every action. Leaders inspire through presence and example, moving alongside fighters, adapting in real time, and ensuring that lessons learned are quickly applied. The result is a resistance capable of operating not as scattered individuals, but as an integrated, adaptive force capable of sustained engagement. Psychological momentum grows alongside tactical efficacy. Hope, once fragile, now permeates every layer of the resistance. Stories of successful strikes, rescued civilians, and temporary strongholds circulate widely, reinforcing courage and determination. Fear, though still present, is balanced by evidence of capability. Human agency begins to assert itself with tangible impact, proving that even in the shadow of millennia-old inevitability, action can shape outcomes and alter the flow of battle. The city, scarred and transformed, reflects this evolution. Collapsed streets, destroyed buildings, and subterranean tunnels are repurposed as tools of strategy and survival. Every district, every engagement, every narrow victory becomes part of a larger tapestry of resistance. Humanity reshapes the environment into an ally, converting ruins into instruments of both offense and defense, and forcing the Necrons to confront the consequences of adaptation and ingenuity. By the culmination of this phase, the turning point is undeniable. Humanity has proven that survival is not passive, that defiance can disrupt, and that even the most precise and patient of adversaries can be influenced by courage, coordination, and creativity. The counteroffensive has evolved from isolated skirmishes into a structured, adaptive campaign, a declaration that life refuses to be extinguished quietly. And so, the turning point marks the beginning of a new era in the siege, a phase in which human ingenuity, resilience, and determination contest inevitability itself. The struggle is far from over, and the threat remains immense, but the momentum has shifted. The city, and the people who inhabit it, now wield the power of agency, hope, and adaptation, proving that even against forces older than memory, life, defiance, and courage endure. The city trembles under the weight of impending climax. After weeks of relentless conflict, resistance and inevitability stand poised on the edge of final confrontation. The Necrons, ancient and precise, move with cold deliberation, aware of every variable introduced by human ingenuity. Yet the human defenders, emboldened by survival, coordination, and hard-earned victories, prepare to turn defiance into decisive action. The final reckoning is not merely about survival, it is a confrontation of wills, strategy, and the unyielding persistence of life against the inevitability of extinction. The resistance consolidates. Fighters from scattered districts converge, guided by experienced leaders who have orchestrated previous operations with precision and adaptability. Supply lines are secured, ambushes are coordinated, and every tactical advantage, however minor, is calculated to maximize impact. Engineers fortify strongholds, civilians coordinate intelligence networks, and soldiers rehearse maneuvers through the twisted remnants of streets and tunnels. The city, scarred and broken, becomes both fortress and battlefield, each corner a potential advantage, each ruin a tool of strategy. Necron forces respond with relentless precision. Patrols sweep systematically, reinforcements arrive with exact timing, and energy grids are fortified to prevent sabotage. Yet even in their methodical approach, the unpredictability of human initiative introduces challenges. Traps disrupt formations, coordinated ambushes neutralize units, and the cumulative effects of previous counteroffensives force continuous recalibration. For the first time in millennia, inevitability faces sustained resistance that cannot be ignored, measured, or fully anticipated. The first clashes of the final reckoning erupt with catastrophic intensity. Explosions shake shattered streets, the metallic hum of Necron war machines resonates through ruined buildings, and human forces strike with calculated precision, exploiting every known weakness. Each encounter is a deadly puzzle. Timing, terrain, and coordination determine whether survival or annihilation prevails. Civilians provide intelligence, engineers reinforce positions, and leaders adjust strategies in real time, creating a dynamic battlefield in which every decision carries life or death consequences. Momentum swings unpredictably. Small human victories inspire courage, disrupt Necron patrols, and force localized recalibration. Yet the enemy's precision and resilience remain formidable, with units recovering quickly, eliminating threats efficiently, and adapting to patterns introduced by the human counteroffensive. The final reckoning is not a series of isolated events, but a continuous flow of tension, strategy, and desperate ingenuity, each moment shaping the ultimate outcome of the siege. Amid the chaos, leaders emerge as pivotal figures. Commanders coordinate multi-district strikes, anticipate enemy maneuvers, and inspire fighters through presence and decisiveness. Every choice is a balance of risk and necessity, and even the smallest miscalculation can cascade into catastrophe. Yet the courage and adaptability of human leaders amplify the effectiveness of the resistance, transforming fragmented acts of bravery into a cohesive force capable of challenging even the most ancient and precise adversary. The city itself is an active participant. Collapsed buildings are fortified into strongholds, subterranean passages allow covert movement, and ruined streets funnel enemy forces into ambush zones. Engineers repurpose debris into weapons, traps, and defensive fortifications. The environment, once passive, becomes an extension of human will, a tool in a battle where ingenuity, courage, and adaptation confront inevitability. Every narrow victory, every successful maneuver, reshapes the terrain of conflict and reinforces the assertion of life against extinction. Psychological pressure peaks. Fear remains, heavy and oppressive, but hope and determination burn brighter. Stories of successful strikes and narrowly avoided annihilation spread quickly, reinforcing courage. Morale becomes both shield and weapon, a force that sustains action in the face of overwhelming odds. The human spirit, tested by fire, loss, and desperation, emerges as a defining factor in the final confrontation. And so, the stage is set. Humanity stands at the precipice of survival, defiance, and decisive action. The Necrons, patient and ancient, confront a civilization that refuses to yield. The city, a scarred testament to resilience and ingenuity, becomes the arena in which the final reckoning will unfold, a confrontation not only of forces, but of wills, strategies, and the enduring assertion of life against the shadow of inevitability. The battle escalates into relentless waves of engagement. Resistance fighters, moving with coordination and precision, strike at vital Necron positions. Ambushes are executed across streets, alleys, and collapsed structures. Explosions rip through energy conduits, patrols are lured into traps, and isolated units are eliminated with meticulous timing. Every action is amplified by prior knowledge of enemy patterns, transforming human ingenuity into a tangible force capable of disrupting ancient precision. Necron forces respond with calculated intensity. Reinforcements arrive seamlessly, patrols adjust dynamically, and energy grids are recalibrated to minimize disruption. Yet the cumulative effect of prior counteroffensives, combined with human adaptability and relentless improvisation, introduces unpredictability into their operations. Even the oldest and most precise warriors cannot fully anticipate the nuances of human cunning. Each anomaly is observed, recorded, and countered, but the constant pressure begins to reveal cracks in the seeming inevitability of conquest. The urban environment magnifies both opportunity and peril. Ruined buildings provide cover for snipers, while collapsed streets funnel enemy forces into prepared kill zones. Subterranean tunnels enable covert movement of supplies and fighters, bypassing heavily fortified corridors. Engineers construct traps, barricades, and improvised weapons from debris, turning the city itself into a tool of war. Every corner, alley, and rooftop becomes part of the chessboard where ingenuity challenges inevitability, and life asserts itself against extinction. Leadership is pushed to its limits. Commanders orchestrate simultaneous operations, anticipate enemy maneuvers, and adapt in real time to the evolving battlefield. Each decision carries immense consequences, for failure can mean death or the loss of strategic advantage. Yet human leaders, seasoned by the horrors and lessons of prior engagements, balance risk with necessity, guiding fighters with courage, decisiveness, and foresight. Their presence becomes the backbone of the final offensive, binding fragmented acts of bravery into a cohesive, adaptive force. Psychological pressure reaches a climax. Fear remains ever present, but hope, determination, and morale have become weapons in their own right. Fighters draw courage from each small victory, a sabotaged energy conduit, an ambushed patrol, a temporarily held stronghold. Stories of resilience and daring action circulate, reinforcing belief in agency and capability. The human spirit, though battered and strained, emerges as a critical factor in the unfolding reckoning. As the final engagements unfold, tactical ingenuity is matched by raw courage. Every maneuver, ambush, and counter is executed with precision born of experience, desperation, and necessity. Civilians contribute actively, coordinating intelligence networks, transporting supplies, and providing guidance through treacherous zones. The city pulses with coordinated action, where survival and strategy intertwine in a relentless push to challenge inevitability. The Necrons, for all their age and precision, begin to register the persistent pressure. Their flawless calculations, refined over millennia, are tested by the chaotic ingenuity of human resistance. Patterns once predictable are disrupted, and responses must be continuously adapted. For the first time in countless cycles of conquest, inevitability encounters uncertainty not in probability but in the ingenuity and audacity of a determined, adaptive foe. Every encounter, every narrow victory, every clever trap becomes a testament to the resilience of life. The city, though scarred and broken, bears witness to the struggle, each district a chapter in the unfolding narrative of defiance. Humanity, though still vulnerable, has asserted itself as a force capable of shaping outcomes, influencing strategy, and contesting the precision of a civilization older than memory. By the end of this phase, the momentum of the final reckoning begins to crystallize. The resistance, adaptive, coordinated, and resolute, has carved openings, disrupted calculations, and asserted agency. The Necrons, though still formidable, confront a variable they cannot entirely control. The city stands as a testament to the human spirit, ingenuity, and defiance, preparing for the concluding phase of conflict, a confrontation that will determine not only survival but the assertion of life against the shadow of inevitability. The final hours of the siege descend like a storm over the city. Every district is a battlefield, every street a theater of strategy and desperation. Resistance fighters move with relentless purpose, exploiting every weakness, every opening, every lapse in the enemy's calculated advance. The culmination of weeks of struggle, adaptation, and courage converges in these moments, as humanity stakes its claim not merely on survival, but on defiance itself. The Necrons advance with unwavering precision. Their movements are synchronized, their units coordinated, and their responses rapid and calculated. Yet even their methodical approach begins to show vulnerability. Human ingenuity, tactics honed through weeks of improvisation, intelligence gathering, and adaptation, creates disruptions that echo across their formations. Ambushes succeed against overwhelming odds, energy conduits are sabotaged, and strategic nodes are temporarily seized. The once absolute inevitability is now contested in every corner of the city. Every act of courage becomes magnified. Fighters, moving in unison across rooftops, through tunnels, and among ruins, engage enemy units with coordinated strikes. Engineers trigger traps, civilians relay intelligence, and leaders orchestrate maneuvers with a precision born of both calculation and instinct. Each moment carries immense weight, for failure can cascade into catastrophe, yet every success builds momentum, confidence, and hope. The city itself, though shattered, is alive with the pulse of resistance. The clash reaches its apex. Explosions, energy discharges, and the metallic resonance of war machines fill the air. Streets are torn apart, buildings reduced to skeletal frameworks, and the ground shakes under the weight of combat. Yet in this chaos, human ingenuity shines brightest. Coordinated attacks exploit terrain, traps neutralize superior units, and fighters adapt to shifting circumstances with resourcefulness born of survival. The turning tide, once inconceivable, begins to manifest in tangible ways. Leadership and strategy are decisive. Commanders direct multi-district operations with remarkable clarity, ensuring fighters act as a cohesive, adaptive force rather than fragmented pockets of resistance. Decisions are rapid, informed by intelligence, experience, and instinct. Every tactical adjustment, every redirection of resources, every calculated risk compounds the effectiveness of the human effort. Leaders, moving alongside their fighters, embody the resilience and determination that now define the city's struggle. Morale and spirit become as critical as strategy and firepower. Stories of small victories, an ambush successfully executed, a Necron patrol destroyed, a civilian life saved, circulate rapidly. These tales inspire courage, reinforce purpose, and solidify unity. Fear persists, but it is tempered by agency, by the knowledge that action has power, and that life itself can assert itself even against the ancient and relentless logic of the Necrons. In the climax of confrontation, every district, every corridor, every ruined building becomes a testament to human ingenuity and resilience. Fighters exploit terrain, coordinate attacks, and disrupt enemy operations with remarkable adaptability. Civilians continue to contribute, ensuring supply lines, intelligence, and morale persist. The city has become an instrument of resistance, its ruins converted into both shields and weapons. Humanity's presence is felt in every strike, every maneuver, and every act of defiance. By the culmination of the final reckoning, the balance has shifted in subtle but undeniable ways. The Necrons, though still formidable and relentless, confront a variable they cannot entirely control. The resistance has transformed from scattered acts of bravery into a coordinated, adaptive, and relentless campaign. Humanity, though battered, has asserted agency, disrupted inevitability, and carved moments of triumph in the face of overwhelming odds. And so, the siege reaches its conclusion, not with total victory, nor with complete annihilation, but with the undeniable assertion of life, defiance, and will. Humanity, scarred yet unbroken, survives not because inevitability failed, but because courage, ingenuity, and persistence created a space in which survival was possible. The city stands as a testament to resilience, the human spirit endures, and the final reckoning becomes a narrative of defiance, hope, and the enduring assertion of life against forces older than memory itself.